Today, we are beginning a study of the Gospel of Matthew, the first gospel of the New Testament. Matthew is most known for its presentation of the Sermon on the Mount. Now, Luke's gospel has much of the same material, but it usually ends up getting quoted from Matthew. That said, Matthew's account of Jesus' life is more than just the Sermon on the Mount. It communicates a perspective about Jesus that emphasizes his royalty. We see this right off the bat with the opening chapter. Today, we're just going to be focusing in on verses 1 through 17, the genealogy of Jesus. Now, the temptation is to skip these 17 verses because, well, you might look at them and think they're boring. But before you do, you need to ask yourself the question, why? Why would Matthew want to include a page worth of material that he could have gone past and gone straight to the story? It takes time to write this stuff out by hand, and the writers of the first century, they were all about the economy of time. Heck, Jews were so sensitive about how long it took to write that they eliminated vowels from their written language. Matthew is recording these verses for a reason, and we get a solid clue as to what that reason is in the very first line of his gospel. It says this: "This is a record of the ancestors of Jesus the Messiah, a descendant of David and of Abraham." Now, this sentence is packed. Immediately, Matthew is declaring that Jesus is the Messiah. There is no doubt that Matthew is proclaiming Jesus as the Savior of humanity. The next clause is this: a descendant of David. This emphasizes that Jesus is of royal blood. In fact, he even structures the genealogy in such a way to communicate that fact. You see, in Hebrew, the language, the letters in the language also double as numbers. This is how you'd see David's name written. And the numeric value of the character Daleth, or D, is 4, and the numerical value of the consonant Vav is 6. So added together, David's name spells the number 14. Some scholars think that this is why Matthew forces Jesus' genealogy into 3 sets of 14 generations. It's kind of a clever way of saying David, 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 or more accurately, King, King, King. The next clause in that verse is that Jesus is also a descendant of Abraham. Matthew wants to be clear that Jesus is an authentic Jew and to tie him to the original covenant that God made with Abraham. And this does 2 things. First, Jesus is not a Gentile. Now, Matthew doesn't have issues with Gentiles. He just wants to be clear that Judaism is the baseline identity for Jesus' cultural identity and his relationship with God. But the second reason is the real point. God has had a plan from the beginning to redeem the people of earth. The call to Abraham was that from his descendants, all the nations of the earth would be blessed. And Jesus is the fulfillment of that covenant. Now, as you read the chain of parents, I want you to notice 2 things. First, each of the 3 sets of 14 generations ends with a significant event in the history of the people of Israel. The first set of 14 ends with David, the king, declared by God to be a man after God's own heart, the archetype for Jewish leadership. The next set ends with the Babylonian exile. The people of Israel, and specifically the leaders of Israel, were not obedient to God, and the result was an invasion. And then at the end of the third set, the Jews are under Roman authority and are officially being led by the Jewish High Council. The prospects for the future for the people of Israel don't look all that great, but this is what it says in verse 16. Mary gave birth to Jesus, who is called the Messiah. Think of it this way. The world was in trouble. Through Abraham, God promised to fix it. The people wanted a king, and God called David to fill that role. But David wasn't the answer. Things continued to go wrong. Jesus is not the king that the people asked for. He is the Messiah we need. Before I let you go, there's that second thing I wanted to point out. Matthew's genealogy includes references to 3 women other than Mary. There's a reason for that too. But you know what? I think I'm going to give that to you to figure out. So go ahead and read these verses, ponder that thought, and may God bless you with a great day.
If these devotional videos are helpful to you, subscribe to our channel and click the notification button so you know when we post a new video. And of course, please share them with others.